Think you know everything about buying or selling a home? I bet you'd be stunned by some of these lesser known insights that could change the way you approach a real estate transaction. I put together a list of just shy of 20 things that are either often asked or that my clients are just usually confused about when it comes to buying or selling a home. So in no special order, I'm going to share with you some of the things that, again, are just commonly overlooked. Starting with a home inspection. Now, when you do a home inspection, your agreement of sale states how many days you have to do a home inspection. But generally, when you do a home inspection, you only have 10 days to do your inspections. But the kicker, or the caveat I should say, is that not only do you need to have your inspections done, you need to also respond to the seller, letting them know what request you have. So that means you need to have your inspections and supporting information all within a few days. Speaking of home inspections, if you're doing a home inspection in the state of Pennsylvania, the agreement of sale actually states that you must hire a licensed inspector, which means you can't just have your best friend who may be a contractor come along, point out potential defects, and then use that as a way to negotiate the transaction. A seller's disclosure is something that's reviewed before you make an offer on the property. And a lot of times a seller's disclosure is, well, the number one reason lawsuits happen. But a seller's disclosure is only to the seller's best knowledge. A lot of times a buyer will do an inspection or they'll talk to a neighbor and they'll find something out and they'll say, well, that wasn't in the seller's disclosure. Well, guess what? The seller has to be aware of it for it to be in the seller's disclosure. So moral of the story, a seller's disclosure should be deemed accurate, but again, it's only to the seller's best knowledge. Buyers, you'll love this one. So when you buy a home, theoretically the following month, you're not gonna have a mortgage payment. If you're settling, let's just say in June, you're not gonna have a payment in July, meaning your first payment would be due in August. So just keep that in mind if you're running numbers and trying to figure out how much liquidity you are going to have, or money, I should say, you're going to have after closing. Keep that in mind. Now, this might be shocking, but when it comes to sex offenders, realtors are not allowed to disclose any information on what or where a sex offender may live. There's actually language in the agreement of sale and in the seller's disclosure that specifically talks about this, but the best we can do in those situations, and hopefully your realtor is giving you those resources, is provide you with websites or sources where you can find out who lives in the neighborhood. Speaking of neighborhood, it is also illegal for a realtor to say that this is a good or a bad neighborhood. I can't tell you how many times a client asked me, is it safe here? Is this a good neighborhood? And the same applies for even a school district. This practice is extremely illegal when it comes to real estate. It's actually referred to as steering or even blockbustering. But at the end of the day, if you're asking your realtor if it's a safe place, we can't answer that. The best we can do is give you resources like having you call the local police. Now, this one I get a lot. And a lot of times people want to buy a home and have extra space. And usually the basement is what they're referring to as that extra space. Now, a lot of times buyers are buying a home with the intention of finishing the basement so it can be a recreational space or whatever you want to use it for. But if you buy a home that doesn't currently offer a finished basement, in order for you to finish the basement in the state of Pennsylvania, there must be two forms of egress. That means that if someone is in the basement, they have to have two options of getting out of the basement. Now, the first option is usually the steps that lead from the main living floor to the basement. Usually that set of steps is in the kitchen. But if there isn't, let's just say, another set of steps that lead either outside or a Bilco door, which is those like barn style doors that flip up, or even an emergency egress window, well, you will not get the permits to finish the basement. And if you do finish the basement without getting those permits, you could lose your insurance. The earnest money deposit. So when a buyer puts a deposit down on a home, well, two things to keep in mind when it comes to deposits. One is that money goes into an escrow account. It doesn't go into the seller's personal account, nor does it go into the broker's personal account. It goes directly to an escrow account that's either held by the title company, the selling agent, which is the agent representing the buyer, or the listing agent's office. One of those three entities has an escrow account, and that's where the deposit gets held. The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to your deposit is that if you are buying a home, and let's just say your closing cost comes out to be $15,000, and you give the seller a $5,000 deposit. Well, at the time of settlement, you're only responsible to bring the difference. So again, using those easy numbers, you would only be responsible to bring $10,000 in that scenario, because the seller or their agent would be bringing your $5,000 deposit back. Now, a lot of times people will tell you that if you have a conventional fixed rate mortgage or FHA fixed rate mortgage or any type of fixed rate mortgage, that your mortgage payment will not change. And I want to be the first to tell you that that is not accurate. Really, what should be told is that the principal and interest portion of your payment will not change, but your taxes and your insurance very well may change, and more than likely they will. When you are a homeowner, your taxes are due for reassessment every year. That does not mean that your taxes will go up every year, but your local municipality will reassess your taxes and make sure that you're paying what you should. So your taxes very well may go up. And the same thing with insurance. Now, your insurance may also go down depending on, well, there's several different reasons it could go down. But at the end of the day, if either of those two mechanics go up, your mortgage payment will go up as well, so long as your mortgage payment includes principal, interest, tax, and insurance. Well, believe it or not, this one is asked a lot, and it's whether or not settlement can take place on the weekend or after work. And the short answer to that is no. Because you're purchasing a home and a mortgage is usually involved or affiliated with the transaction, and you're using a title company, settlements occur during banking hours. Usually there's wires that need to be sent in or out, mortgages that need to be sent, or wires need to be sent in for that mortgage, and there are documents that need to be sent out quite often back to the mortgage company to approve, for them to issue final funding approval. So settlement is usually Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now, if you want to move into a home before you make settlement, it is possible, but I would highly advise you not to. Ultimately, where I'm going with this is that settlement is when you take possession of the home. So if you are buying new furniture and you want that furniture to be put in the house before you purchase it, the standard language in the agreement of sale does not allow for that. You would actually need to come to terms with the seller and do something that's referred to as a pre-settlement possession, where you can either move in, you personally, or have content stored at the property before settlement. Long story short, if you plan on doing that, moving in or having content at the property, you have to come to terms with the seller, and it has to be done in writing. I highly advise not to do it, whether you are the buyer or the seller. Now, I really wish all sellers knew this, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a property on the day of or even the day prior to settlement, only to find out that the utilities are off. If you buy a home, you should be doing a pre-settlement walkthrough. Not only one, preferably two, but on the day of settlement, you should be doing a pre-settlement walkthrough just to make sure that the house is still there and it's being delivered to you the way you expect for it to be delivered. No new damage, all of the content has been removed, and so on. But the agreement of sale states that it's the seller's responsibility to have all utilities, which would be your electric, your gas if necessary, propane if necessary, oil. Every utility for the home must be on and functioning, and it should remain that way throughout the day of settlement. And again, this is so that when you arrive to do your walkthrough, you can make sure that the hot water gets hot. You can make sure that the air condition turns on, or that the heat turns on, and all of these other things, well, just for peace of mind. So sellers, really, if anything, keep in mind you have to keep the utilities on. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to get there and that be the case, or not be the case, however you say that. HOAs, or homeowners associations. Now, a lot of times people are just like, they may not want to move into a homeowners association because maybe they want their front door painted a certain color, or they want a certain color siding. Now, those are the most common things that come to mind when people say they don't want to live in a homeowners association, because there are rules that you have to follow. But those rules actually go much further than just your front door or where you can hang a flag or put a grill. As a matter of fact, your HOA can also determine how many cars you own or how many cars are parked within the development. They can determine where those cars are parked. They can limit RVs. If you have an RV, some of them are not allowed in some HOAs, and they can even limit your pets, whether it be by breed or by how many pets you have. So if you're buying in an HOA, you make sure you review the bylaws, the rules, regulations that are delivered to you. It is part of the transaction. It's legally binding. You have time to review them to make sure that you're okay living in that development. But yeah, those are just some of the things that are overlooked. So if you're looking to buy a home that, let's just say, needs a hub, and you don't have the money to do the renovations. Now, although the interest is slightly higher than a traditional loan, there are loans out there. There are several loans out there, both conventional and FHA products, that will allow for a buyer to purchase a property and also renovate the property all within the same loan. These are known as renovation or reconstruction loans. FHA 203K is one of them that comes to mind. But these are phenomenal loans, and a lot of people just aren't aware that they even exist. Speaking of those loans, but if you do go that route and you do want to take out a renovation or a reconstruction loan, just note that you personally cannot do the renovation. Or if your father is a contractor or your friend is a contractor, they cannot personally do the renovation. Now, I say that loosely because there are ways for your contractor friend to get on the list. But if you're going to go with one of those loans, the contractor or contractors who do the work must be on an approved list with that loan program. And there's many reasons for it, but the short answer is that's how they protect, they being the lender, protect their money. They want to make sure that the repairs are being done, the repairs are quality repairs, and they usually issue that money out in draws, again, just so that they're involved throughout the process. But again, it's a really good loan program. As is does not always mean as is. And this is more so, I believe, for sellers who may want to pay attention to this one. If you sell your home and you advertise in the agreement of sale that you are selling your home as is in its condition, that does not warrant or mean that you may not have to do some repairs. Technically, when you advertise your home as an as-is sale, that generally means that you're not going to do or honor any request that a buyer were to make if they were to do a home inspection or something along those lines. Okay, it's a, hey, you buyer, you can take it or leave it kind of scenario. But when you sell a home, in many areas, there's either a use and occupancy or a licenses and inspections. There's a certificate of occupancy. There's several names for this inspection, which is a city or township level inspection. Okay, so your local municipality will potentially, if they have this resale certification that's necessary, they will have a list of repairs that need to be done that in the agreement of sale says that the seller is responsible for doing unless they negotiate differently with the buyer. So a buyer could take on those repairs, but it needs to be agreed upon in advance that not only is the home being sold as is, but the buyer is also responsible for any inspection or corrective action that would stem from a local inspection. Now, as a listing agent, I'm often asked information about the offers that we have on any particular property. And this happened a lot during the pandemic because, well, as you know, most sellers received several offers on their home. The question is, what is the highest offer we have? And realtors try to be creative and phrase this differently. And they may say, hey, if I were to bring you an offer at X, would it be worth it, right? Almost loosely asking you, is my offer worth bringing? Anyway, so the reason a listing agent is not allowed to divulge this information is because if you peel back the layers, by us answering that question, we could be taking money out of our seller's pocket. And I'll explain why. Let's just say a home is listed for $500,000. And you come in and you ask me about the offers, and I have an offer at $500,000, but you want to offer, let's just say $505,000. If I tell you, yeah, we have an offer, it's $500,000, right on the nose. Well, theoretically, you may say, well, crap, I'll save some money. Instead of offering them $505, let's offer them $501. Let's offer them $502.5. So, and there's other reasons, but on the surface, a listing agent who's giving out that information is really doing their seller or their client, I should say, a disservice, because they are promoting or helping them lose negotiation power. If you have solar panels on your home and you don't own them outright, well, it could be a nightmare for your transaction. A lot of people don't know that if you purchase a home that has solar panels and they are leased, well, the buyer is subject to honoring the terms of whatever that agreement is. And there, in some of these agreements, I've even seen some charges to transfer the agreement from the current owner to the new owner. So just know that if you have solar panels or you're buying a home that has solar panels, it's important to find out if they're owned or leased. And the very last thing to discuss today is whether or not something remains in the home at the time of settlement. Now, unless you're coming to some type of an agreement, most of the things in the home, including a refrigerator, but all the furniture, all the personal belongings, will be removed. If it's attached to the wall, it's considered an attachment, okay? So, curtain rods, including the curtain, ceiling fans, fan hoods that would be above a stove, or maybe even a mounted microwave that's above a stove. These are considered fixtures. Even thermostats that are attached to the wall, your smart thermostats that people have nowadays, these are considered fixtures. So if you're selling a home and there's a fixture that you want to take, i.e. a chandelier, a fan, or that smart thermostat that's on the wall, you need to disclose that up front. Okay, now if you're on the buy side and you're wondering what stays, well, again, if it's attached to the home and it's not disclosed and it's going to be removed, it is going to stay. So if you want the refrigerator, if you want the washer, if you want the dryer, or maybe even the deep freezer, you need to make sure that you're negotiating that and it goes in the agreement of sale. As a matter of fact, I showed up once, one of the first sales in my career. I showed up, the buyer thought that they were getting the refrigerator because the seller said that they would leave it. And because we didn't include it in the agreement of sale, well, it was on the moving truck, and that was not a pleasant experience. So these are some of the things that I have found over the years that are, again, just commonly overlooked or confused, people are confused about. But there's a laundry list of other things. And if something comes to mind, let me know, drop it in the comments and let me know something that either you were unaware of or something that you found people just don't know. So there you have it. I'm Chris Nelson with Gemstone Realty. Thanks for checking in. Until next time.